Hi, I'm Alicia. I'm an alcoholic. And Renee just brought up my worst fears. People talking about me and not liking me. So thank you. That's the way to start this off. Okay, God, here we go. I do want to thank everybody that's on this committee and that made this deal possible. You guys are just definitely servant spirit and hard workers. And, even up until, last night in the raffle, people weebling and wobbling to get the raffle done, or the sobriety countdown. And you guys have just made this deal possible, and I thank you for having me. So many great speakers this weekend. All of them. I got so much out of what they talked about, and it's so interesting how this disease works, that every one of the stories were different in their own way, but they were all the same. They all dealt with the void and that peace that was inside, and each person had a different story as to what they did to fill it and to change the way they felt and the consequences that came. But we all have that in common, and the book talks about that this disease is no respecter of persons. It doesn't matter where you've been, where you're from, what kind of home, upbringing, whatever. It doesn't matter. If this void's there and you have this disease, then we all know what we're talking about, And the flip side of that is that the solution's the same. That's the biggest part, We all know what we can do to make that stop, and that there is hope no matter where you've been or what you've done. And I know for me, when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous, that was just it was an eye-opening experience for me, because I thought that the way I'd been living was just the way I was going to live. I did not think there was a way out. I didn't think that there was any hope that one day I would not only not drink alcohol, but I wouldn't even think about wanting to drink alcohol. That's the one that freaked me out. They promised that my mind, the obsession, would be gone as well. And that is something I'd battled, from 14 to 26. I either had alcohol and other things in my body daily, or I thought about getting them, and so to have peace of mind and to be recovered, that the book talks about, I didn't think it'd be possible. But thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God that I walked into a room of people carrying big books and talking about solution. Had I walked into some other meetings, I might have walked out and gone, I don't want what they have, but God knew where to send me, and because of that, I'm free today. I've really got to work on an exciting way to start my story, because it's just so stupid. I'm from San Antonio. It's so dumb. Anyway, we come from a great family. Over and over this book talks about in different ways that there's nothing on the outside that causes this kind of stuff to happen. And that was my experience. There was no abuse in the home. There was no, extreme poverty. We weren't living under a bridge and struggling. And, it was none of that. It was a wonderful home, 4 brothers and sisters. My father at the time was an assistant pastor and very busy in the church. My mother, loving woman, great mother of all of us, took care of each of us as we were the only child. She's just a great woman. So there was no reason that at 14 I should begin to start feeling that stuff that you heard about all weekend. The not okay in my skin, the anxious, the depression, the different things that the spiritual malady kind of goes with. And I went to private school for 10 years. God, everything was great, but at 14, was ready for something different. I did not like the way I felt, and that's when I found alcohol. And I don't know if it was, Mad Dog or Boone's Farm or what kind of lovely beverage it was. Don't remember exactly. But my first drink, I remember exactly, everyone shared it this weekend. All of a sudden, dunk, I got right. The anxiety was gone. I was much prettier. I was much funnier. I could talk to the guys I was scared of. I could, talk to the girls that I'd been intimidated by, and it was just all of a sudden I was okay. And I remember having the conscious thought, I'm going to be doing this for a long time, because for the first time, I felt okay about me. And so I followed that dream of doing this for a long time. And at 17, had transferred to public school and immediately gravitated to the party crowd because they were much cooler. So at the end of my junior year, the head of that party crowd that I'd been dating, he broke up with me. And I was devastated because this was high school love. I mean, we were going to be married and all kinds of stuff in my head, you know. And I'd written his name all over all my spirals, and it was like love for the first time. But he ruined all that. He broke up with me. And so I'm out of the crowd now, you know. And so it wasn't a good feeling. And I set out that night to get lit. You know, the book talks about blotting out the consciousness of your intolerable situation, and that's what I set out that night to do. And I succeeded. I was very good at that. And that night I remember walking out the door. I remember looking at myself in the mirror. I remember what I had on, walked out the door. Next thing I remember is I wake up in a hospital with jaws wired shut, trach in my neck, arms tied down, staples in my stomach, feeding tube over to the right, and both legs in a cast. And I had no clue what happened. And what I'm told happened is that I succeeded at getting lit, and my friends couldn't handle me anymore. I was in a blackout and was just acting pretty crazy, and they brought me home. And my mother was there, and we get in an argument, and I told her I just was leaving, and I just wanted to die. And I left, and I hit a telephone pole about a mile down the road, going about 45 miles an hour. I actually had someone the other day going, "That wasn't that fast." I was like, sorry. Like, you missed the whole tragic part of the story there. Thanks, hon. Anyway, but, you know, when I came to and you know, I had bit the steering wheel. I didn't have my seatbelt on, and so I kind of bit the steering wheel like that. I broke the palate of my mouth, shattered my nose bone from the inside, ripped my cheek, and bit off my bottom lip, and knocked out 4 teeth. So this is where the majority of the damage took place. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and absolutely not wanting to live anymore because I was so ugly inside, so dark inside that I had used outsides to kind of get through life. And now I was pissed at God. I felt that God had taken that from me. I remember even asking God, how could you let this happen? Why didn't you move the pole? You know, it's like, you know, the huge victim. And I just wanted to die. And at this point in my story would normally be where I used to have false teeth on a retainer. I had 4 little teeth that would go in and out on a flipper. And I used to pop my teeth out when I spoke. Unfortunately, God fixed my teeth this last year, so I can't do it. But they're in my car. If anyone, just kidding. It's not true. That's always a good way to get people, what the hell did she just do? Anyway, so 3 months in the hospital, learning to walk again. I mean, all reconstructive surgery, all kinds of stuff, and I leave the hospital. Well, the book talks about, given sufficient reason, can you choose to quit? You know, can you choose to stop? Well, here I've almost died in a drunk driving car accident. I get out of the hospital, and you would think that I would say alcohol bad. You know, you would think that I would want to stay away from it, but that's not at all what I did. In fact, my friends threw me a party for getting out of the hospital from a drunk driving car accident, and I'm not only drinking at this party, I'm doing party tricks. I'm squirting beer where the teeth are missing. You know, like this kind of deal here. I'm putting magnets on my face to connect to the metal clamp. What is this accent? Metal? This metal clamp that's been inserted in my TMJ, you know, and I'm like, check this out. And they're all, dude, you know, it's like, insanity, you know, absolutely insane. And this is 17 years old. So I can look back and see at 17 I had the 3 pieces of this disease. Can you control the amount you take once you start? Absolutely not. How do you feel without alcohol? Miserable, irritable, hate myself, depressed. Given sufficient reason, can you choose to quit? No. I just almost died and I'm drinking again. My family was just in awe that I had picked right back up. You know, here they just watched me die almost, and yet I'm drinking again. And that was the beginning of this insanity. You would think that would have happened at the end of my disease, but I started off with a bang, you know. And I ended up graduating high school, thank God, and went to Southwest Texas, which is now Texas State, you know. And a lot of reasons that I went there, but one of them is because I took the SAT on acid, and sorry, that's an outside issue, but the little dots were moving everywhere, and it was really difficult to get the right dot, and so I didn't score real high, so I went there, and also that I found my people. I mean, my God, this was the party school, you know, and This is where I began to realize, though, that I don't drink like other people do. It hadn't hit me yet. But I was in this little sorority deal up there, and living with about 60 or 70 girls, and these girls are downstairs eating dinner before we went out. Why would you eat dinner before you go out drinking? I mean, it so confused me. I mean, I'm upstairs chugging beers and taking shots, just to get right, to fit in, to walk out the door. And I didn't think that was abnormal, but I'm starting to notice something's not right. As my disease progressed, they would have people to watch me each night going, okay, who's watching Alicia? Are you going to be okay tonight? Yeah. I'm just going to drink beer. I won't drink hard liquor. It's going to be cool. Yeah, no, I got it. Don't worry. I ate. I'm fine. I would have all these plans of how I was going to do better each night. And night after night, that would fail, After 2 years of this, I dropped out of college because apparently they want you to go to class and stuff, and that was just way too difficult for me. So, actually, I graduated. I just lied. I dropped out, and the last semester I'm taking, psychological statistics. I'm taking 17 hours. I mean, I'm doing well, and I had a 3.67 GPA at the end. So again, the book tells us we're intelligent in a lot of areas. Some of us are so talented and creative. But when it comes to alcohol, we're strangely insane, and that was my experience. So I dropped out of college, and I moved back to San Antonio and meet my first ex-husband. I think I've decided I need to quit getting married because now I'm having to label first, second. There's only two. But anyway, I meet my first ex-husband, and he had just gotten out of prison 5 years straight for alcohol and drugs. I knew he beat women because I'd been raised around him, and I knew his history and his background. He was my best friend's brother when I was growing up. He had no job, no car, no money. Yeah, and he was all mine, And I joke that there's a lot of women in Alcoholics Anonymous who would have fought me for him. It's like, no, he's mine. And the book talks about made a decision based on self that placed me in a position to be hurt. And holy cow, did I ever do this. Here's some of my decisions. I didn't want to be alone, so I hooked up. He was involved with alcohol and drugs in this big, pretty dark scene, and that was pretty cool, so I wanted to be involved with that to look cool. What was the other one? Oh, the big one. I was going to change him. I was going to change him. And my Wayward Souls program was going to turn him around, and people would just praise me for what I had done with this demon-possessed man, And so I had all these decisions that I made based on self that got me into this relationship. I picked him. At the end of the 6 years with him, I had married him during that time. We got involved in some pretty heavy, dark stuff. And at the end of the 6 years with him, I have a knife to my wrist because I cannot quit drinking. I can't quit doing the drugs, and I can't get away from the monster I'm married to. And I had no hope. I had no idea how I was going to get out of this. Death seemed to be the only way, and I've got a little scar to, remind me of that night. And instead of doing that, I rushed off to my parents' house. And during that 6 years, I had good jobs and lost good jobs. And at the end of that time, I had lost everything. We had given everything away in our disease. We even gave the couches away to support our habit at the end of that, to make sure that the supply of alcohol and stuff would continue coming. So I'd lost everything. And I've been lying to my parents this whole time. I'm a master manipulator. I can run the game and tell whatever story I need to get whatever I want. And I had done that for so long that I'd really burned the bridges with my family. And they did not know what to trust anymore. And so after this attempt here, or this night of desperation, I rushed to my mom's, and I tell her what's going on. And they take me to treatment. They took me in the middle of the night out to a place in Center Point, Texas. And I get there, and I've got no clothes. They didn't pack me. I had no makeup, no clothing, no nothing. And so my mother gave me some clothes that were in the Salvation Army bag in the trunk of her car. Some nice stuff. And I get there, and I'm, just a quick visual for you. I'm probably 40 pounds thinner than I am right now. My hair's falling out. I have sunken in, face, circles under my eyes, bruises. I've got my lovely skanky going out clothes on from the night before, and I think I look just great, and I get there, and they put me in this room with this rather large, she was detoxing. It was this rather, I don't know if it was me hallucinating or if this is, I'll never know if this is what she really looked like. But she had this big head with this big perm, and it looked this big to me. And I'm in detox with her, and all she could do was hold up her sheet like this and go, and I'm like, what the hell? You know, 3 hours ago I was dancing, I was at the club, I was cool, and now where am I? And I'm just freaking out. And I'm 25 at this time, and she gives me, my roommate, bless her heart, she gave me one of her nightgowns to wear because I didn't have any clothes. And so, remember, I'm, emaciated here, and her nightgown was a little bit larger, and I would hold my arms out, and it would just hit the ground. It was huge, and it was Christmas flannel plaid with eyelet lace here and here. It was turtleneck. It was very nice. And so I put on this gown, and I get on these slippers that my mom had in her trunk. They were skunk slippers. And the skunk ears came up to about my knees. And so I'm on my detox meds. I'm in my gown. I put on my slippers. And I am in such self-delusion that I'm walking down the halls thinking I look hot, And I'm looking for a date, for God's sakes, And I'm walking down the hall going, love me, trying to find a guy, trying to find anything. Because I'm a master at finding things to fill this void, and men is definitely one of the ones that I'll shove in there, And so, unfortunately, I did find someone to love me, and I took a 19-year-old hostage. That's what I call people I get in relationships with, hostages, because I haven't done them very well. Wait, that's the old me. Today I'm much different. But anyway, this 19-year-old kid. We ended up hanging out during treatment, and I spent my whole 30 days wondering where he was, what he was doing, what was going on. I did not even crack this book. The doctor there at that hospital, he would read some stories in the back of the book. We'd read a little bit. He'd fall asleep while he was reading. It was, it wasn't I did not learn a whole lot about this disease, but I wasn't ready either. If I'm honest, I went to treatment to get away from my first husband. I wasn't ready to get sober just yet. And so I get out of treatment, and I moved to Kerrville because I think San Antonio is the problem. Of course, the big city. So if I move to Kerrville, it'll get better. Also, my hostage moved to Kerrville, so I thought it was a wonderful place for me to reestablish. And so I moved to Kerrville, and when I get there, I've got a trash bag full of clothes to my name, literally. It was a lawn and leaf bag, but it was a trash bag. That's it. I had lost everything else. And move into this house with these ladies. They rented a room to me. And when I was in treatment, I was the model patient. Was voted most likely to stay sober. Played the game so well. I played it so well that they hired me there a month out of treatment. They, they needed someone to do the doctor's medical billing, and that's what I had done in San Antonio. And so they thought I was going to be sober, so they hired me. So now here I am in a new town. Trash bag full of clothes, working at a treatment center. Now, I'm not working any steps. I don't have a sponsor. I'm not going to meetings. Not true. I'm going to the men's halfway house meetings. They were very spiritual meetings. They were very good. And they only had men. But those are I'm not doing anything to treat this void in here, I'm dry. And I understand what that term means because I'm not connected to God, and I'm not drinking and drugging. I'm crawling out of my skin. And this is the first time I really got to see that alcohol and drugs was not the problem because I don't have any. And I'm miserable. Absolutely miserable. And I remember looking in the mirror. I think I had about 60 days dry at this time. Looking in the mirror going, okay, girl, we can drink. Just don't do drugs. That was the problem. Come on, you can do it. And guys, I've got scars on my face from what alcohol did at 17. And that didn't even cross my mind. The book says cunning, baffling, powerful. Absolutely. The insanity of this obsession. The insidious insanity of that first drink, I love how the book talks about what goes on, because everyone thinks, well, once I put it in my body, I am screwed. It's like, no. Let's talk about before you put it in your body, the insanity that's going on up here. That is where the problem is. And so the insanity that happened with me, I understand now that I had no choice at that time. I had no connection, no God, no nothing. I didn't have the power to choose what I was going to do or not. But I drank that night and did drugs. Go figure. And I thought that I was going to be able to hide this. Here I am. Remember, I'm working at a treatment center now, drinking and doing drugs. I was also the secretary for the psychiatrist there, so I would have to go get the patients out of their groups to come meet with the doctor. And I'd been up most of the night. I'm probably reeking of alcohol, not really taking care of myself very well, but putting on the makeup and walking in and, thinking I'm doing okay. And I remember the patients asking me, I know you just got out of treatment here. How do you do it? How do you stay sober? And I'm just, it's easy. It's great. It's just, I love it, and I'm just shaking because I'm ready for another drink, and I am just miserable. The craziness is I kept this double life up for a year. I mean, I don't know. Kerrville is not the place. I mean, it's a recovery or a retirement community. There's only two things to do there. You either recover or retire. And it's not the place to relapse and party because everyone's in recovery. And so I would go to San Antonio, and I just had this whole other life there and would come back and act like little Miss AA girl, and I really thought people were buying it. I found out later they kind of had an idea. But My first husband goes back to prison at that time, and we didn't have anything to split, so it was an easy divorce. And so then I meet my second ex-husband. This is pathetic. Okay, second ex-husband. He's living at that men's halfway house. So see, it paid off to go to those meetings. He was living there. He was an alcoholic. I'm an alcoholic. He was in relapse. I was in relapse. So it was love again. It was another healthy start. And I began drinking and doing stuff with him. And I absolutely understand about the progression of this disease. I could definitely see it in my life. But once I got with him, it was like it was taken to a whole nother level. And that was about 6 months of doing that. And I got all the material stuff back. I had an apartment, a car, the clothes. I had the clothes, but the family. I got the material stuff back. But at the end of this 6 months with him, I am so dead inside. The darkness is so thick. Alcohol has become the constant in my life, and I can't stop. No matter how much I promise myself I'm not going to stop at the store and get a 12-pack on the way home before I go, I'm pulling in. I mean, I can't not do it. And I don't understand. And at the end of a 3-day binge, he and I are holding each other, just crying, going, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. And I remember looking up at the ceiling, laying on that bed, just going, God, if you're even there, I need your help. And I don't know what was different about that cry out to God than the other millions I'd done before. I don't know why it was different. But something inside me didn't want to be this woman anymore. And it had never been so strong. By the grace of God, I was able to walk into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous that next night. And that was January the 11th, 1999. I had no idea what was about to happen to me. I had no idea. My stepfather had been in AA when I was drinking in my college days and stuff. And I used to throw beer on him. I mean, he'd talk to me about his special meetings, and he would call his sponsor his special friend, and I would just, F your special friend, and I was just throwing, I was a nightmare. And so he was my example of AA and would try to get me when I'm drunk, when I don't even want to be sober, and so I was just, so walking into those rooms was real difficult. Plus the fact that most of the people that I worked with, that I'd been lying to for a year, they were in that meeting. That was a little difficult because I am the queen of wearing the mask, like everything's okay. I'm a master at it, and I can switch the mask no matter who I'm with and what I'm doing, and I was just so good at it. So here I am in this room, and I'm about to get honest for the first time. And I remember when they got done and they get to give out chips, and they give the little speech on the desire chip, and I'm in my head, I'm going, don't get up, don't get up, don't get up, don't get up. Oh God, I'm up. It was like, God, shit. I have no idea. I know it was God today, but that was a turning point for me because that meant the gig's up. Game's over. Game is over. And I had a woman that walked up to me and said, you need a sponsor. Gave me her card. I had heard her speak in the meeting, and she was talking about how her life had changed. She's talking about this experience she'd had from working these steps, and And I had listened to her and did not think it would be possible. And then God sent her to me to be my sponsor. I think God knew that I was so stubborn that I probably wouldn't get one, or I would shop around and be like, she's not cute enough. I don't like this. I don't like that. So he knew he needed to send me one. And and that began my journey with her. And she sat me down and started the title page of this book and walked me through it. Literally read it to me. Because I'm not the best reader in the world or trying to comprehend. I'll read a paragraph and go, huh? And reread it again. And no one else is shaking their head. Thanks. Okay, thanks, Tom. Appreciate it. So I had this woman that took the time to sit down and read. She didn't know me from Adam. She didn't know anything about me. I'm a total stranger to her, and yet she's ready to sit down with me and take the time to do this. And I heard Paul and some other people talk about it. It blowed me away. Sheesh. It blew me away that this person wanted nothing from me. She didn't want anything but to sit down and help me. And now that I've been through this work, I understand why. I understand that she was doing that so that she could stay sober. I understand that it was the highlight of her life at that time because it became mine shortly thereafter. She explained in the 3 pieces of this disease to me, understanding that I was not a bad person. Because see, the book talks about if moral conviction and a better philosophy of life was enough to keep us sober, I think a lot of us would have been sober a long time ago. Because I had strong moral conviction. I'd been raised in this Christian home. I'd been taught what kind of little girl I was supposed to be. Who made you? God made me. What else did God make? God made all things. What? Quote the scripture. Blah, blah, blah. I knew, and yet I couldn't be her. I wanted desperately to be Daddy's little girl. And yet I'm out there doing things that I would die if he ever knew. I had no idea how I'd become the woman I'd become at 26. And I remember at the end of my disease looking at myself, standing there just shaking, going, how did you become this? What is wrong with you? This is not how you were raised. I could not understand what was wrong. So when she explained to me that it wasn't about just making good choices and being a good girl and following, it wasn't about that. I didn't have the power to make that kind of choice. The choice I did have was to seek spiritual help. That's the choice I had, that I needed a defense in my life or I was going to do it again. And the desperation to do anything to not be this woman anymore was so strong. And I was ready for the change. And so really understanding step 1, that I was either going to die this alcoholic death or I was going to live on a spiritual basis, that there were no option C's. It was like A, B, that's it. And I'd been looking for option C my whole life. Okay, let's try this. This will work. No, this is it. The book talks about getting beat into a state of reasonableness. And what that looked like for me at that time was, all right, surrender. I will do anything you ask me to do. Anything. I just don't want to be me anymore. I don't know how to get out of this cycle. I don't know how to stop this insanity. I can't shut the voices up in my head. I have to have alcohol just to feel okay. I'll do anything. And I stepped out on faith that what she was telling me was true and that it was going to happen. Because what other options did I have? I had exhausted the rest of them. So it was either going to be I'm going to go towards this light or I'm going to end up over in the darkness. The God stuff I thought was going to be fairly simple because it's like, yeah, I've been around God my whole life. Check, God step 2. But I had to go a lot deeper in that because I had so many prejudice from religion and some things that had happened around the church and in our family around God or in the name of God, and some really hypocritical people that had come in and out of our lives, that I had some pretty strong prejudice that needed to be cracked. And throughout my sobriety, they've continued to get cracked. But at the beginning, I really had to understand that that this God was about love, and that's what he wanted for me, was to restore me to sanity. He wanted to help me. He wanted to be there for me, because the God of my childhood was pretty punishing and pretty judgmental and had some pretty high standards, and I couldn't live up to him. So it was like, screw it. I won't even seek him. So I had to really try to shift my thinking around this God stuff in order for this to work. And again, like I said, I've had current shifting taking place. It doesn't just happen overnight. The further along I got in this work, the more I understood that these steps were about finding out about me. finding out the truth about me. This fourth and fifth step business that I was so scared of, this was the first time I was going to let another person into my life and let them know the truth about me. Because I'd been hiding for so long that I had no idea how freeing it was going to be to get honest with someone, And when I left there, God, I remember, I won't share that. Never mind. Okay. Let's go on. Never mind. Okay. So I get done with this fifth step business. And at the end of the fifth step, she goes, when we got to I'm about to share it again. Dang, stop. Right. Okay. So we get to the sex inventory, right? I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. And this was my dark closet. This was the behavior. Heidi talked about some of it too. This was the place no one had ever gone with me. Me and God, we're the only ones that had these memories, And so when I got to this part, it was like, I don't want to look at my behavior around this stuff. I don't want to talk about it. Can we just go on? And that was so freeing, because darkness cannot live where there is light. So as I opened this dark closet, I took this padlock from hell off that closet, and I let this light in. She helped me understand that that's who I was in my disease. That's not who I am. That I am a child of God. That I am precious and innocent. And that the things I did in my disease, that doesn't define me as a woman, And it was an amazing experience. Again, because I had beat myself up so long for who I had become. And then she shared some of her stuff, and I was like, geez, woman, you're a hoe. Just kidding. Just kidding. But it was almost like I wish she would have shared that with me first to kind of let me know I was safe. But thank God for that's what I'm talking about. This is a total stranger. She's probably my mother's age. She's, and yet we've been through the exact same stuff. God knew who I needed in my life. And 6 and 7, I got to see who I was without God. I got to see that where my need was. I get to look at these things in my life that are objectionable to me so that I can try to become the opposite. I had an amazing experience around the amends. And the biggest one for me was, that night of my car accident, my mother is the only one that knows really what happened that night. She's the only one that knows the fight we got into, the things that were said. I don't remember. And my selfishness, I let my mother carry that guilt until I was 26 years old. About if I could have only said this, if I could have just stopped her, if I could have just taken the keys, if I could have just calmed her down, and I'm so selfish that not only did I let my mother carry that, but I used it. I used my car accident. Mom, people are talking about me, in my face, and make her feel bad for me so that I can get what I want. I used this thing. I wanted to play sports in college, and that was taken from me because of the wreck. And I would use that to make her feel sorry for me. And I had no clue how this tortured this woman until I got to make amends to her. And part of my amends to her was releasing her of that. And taking full responsibility for that night. But there is nothing she could have done. There's nothing she could have said. I was the drunk. I was the one that drove. It is what happened. And not only that, but now God uses it to help other people, Mom. It's not your fault. And here's this pretty tough woman who been through a lot in her life. And you can just see this. She's physically, it's coming. It's coming. This years of guilt that she's suppressed for years about what she could have done for her daughter. And she just loses it. That began some healing for her it was just amazing, how God works. And that is such a huge part of my recovery today as far as accepting responsibility for where my life is and what's going on, accepting that and doing something about it. Because I've been the victim my whole life. When I first got sober, my sponsor used to say, Alicia, your V is flashing. Because I'd be like, did I tell you what he did? Victim, 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 Because I realize how much I get out of it. My God, I get attention. I get sympathy. I get my way. I get an excuse for why my life sucks. I get something out of it. And it was so comfortable and familiar to me that it was terrifying to get out of it. It was terrifying to step up and do something different. And yet I had said at the beginning, I'm willing to do anything to not be me. And that meant getting out of the victim role and growing up for the first time. When I got to step 12, the first woman that I sponsored, she got loaded. I was like, oops, did something wrong, Must have skipped a page or two or something. And that happened a lot. But I finally started to understand why I was sober. It finally clicked as to what the whole plan and the purpose was of my life here. The book says we have recovered and been given the power to help others. That's what I'm about today. That's what I'm supposed to be doing today, is to carry this message to the next girl that walks in. And the first time I saw a young lady my age come into the meeting and she had her eyes down to the ground, she couldn't look up. She was terrified, sitting back in the corner with her arms crossed. I knew exactly why. I knew why, because that was me. And the amazing thing was I now had something to offer. I had something to go give that girl to help her, and not just help her have a better day, help her save her freaking life. I mean, this was an amazing responsibility that I'd been given, that we've all been given from doing this work. And, the book talks about over and over that trials and low spots, helping others is going to save the day. Trouble in personal relationships, throw yourself harder into helping others. Nothing ensures immunity from drinking is helping another alcohol. I mean, it's throughout the whole book because it's the key. Helping others is the foundation stone of our recovery. And if I'm not doing it, then I'm missing something. I'm missing it. I've done a lot of stupid things in my little time sober. I have made some mistakes, gotten complacent, huge ego. I mean, I've done a lot of things that some of us do. But the one thing that God has continued to do is to place women in my path that need help. And if I will step up to the plate and help them, it always seems that God takes care of me. And I really started to finally understand that how it works is that I'm going to think about you and what's going on in your life and what I can do to help you. You're going to think about God, and God's going to take care of me. I'll think about you, you think about God, and God's going to take care of me. And over in my sobriety, that has saved my life. It has saved the day. Back up real quick. I ended up, alcoholic number 2. Hey, that's in the book somewhere. My second ex-husband, when I had 2 months sober, I finished the work. I'm sponsoring people. The obsession was lifted, probably 30 days into my recovery. And Shane, he relapsed. And here I was thinking that we were going to be sober together forever. Here's my great plans again. We were going to sponsor couples. Mm-hmm. We were going to go to couples conventions. I had a plan for us, and he screwed that up. These guys just do not do what they're supposed to do. And I got to see at that moment just how much I'd still been using him to fill this void, and how much he was my higher power. Because I came home and he was just gone, and it was just missing. And I fell on the ground that night crying so hard, just crying out of exhaustion, because I knew if I walked out that door, I was going to get loaded, because that's what Alicia does. She doesn't feel pain. She doesn't get, She drinks and blots out. And I wanted to be sober more than anything in the world. Thank God I'd done this work. Thank God the obsession was lifted, but it was still just the first time I'd really felt pain and did not want to medicate it. And all I could do was fall on the ground. I got on my knees. All I could say was help. Crawled into bed and cried myself to sleep. And I woke up the next morning and I was sober. It was like, oh my God, this stuff really works. It was like I didn't believe it, but that was the first time that God walked me through a tough time in sobriety. That was the first time that God put his hand down and was like, I've got you. That was the first, and that was absolutely not the last. Because you hear it said all the time, you don't get sober and just all of a sudden there's sunbeams and butterflies everywhere. It doesn't happen. I've gone through some stuff in sobriety that just, God, even in my disease, breaking a fingernail, I would drink. It was like sun came up, drink. It was like someone said the other day that in their disease, breathing was a trigger. It was like, I think I need a drink. It's like, so to have these situations come up in my sobriety and have this power in my life today to deal with this stuff and a design for living that really works so that drinking isn't even an option. Then I'm going to work these steps. I'm going to help other people. God's going to take care of me, and I will learn and grow from the experience. And over and over again, that has happened. I unfortunately didn't. My sponsor at the time, when I had 2 months sober, said, Alicia, leave him alone. Let him go. Get out of the way. Let God have him. And I said, no. And so proceeded to place myself in some positions to be hurt. And unfortunately, he absolutely struggles with staying sober. And don't know exactly what the missing piece is. He's been around the fellowship since he was 18. He's 34 now. When I had about a year and a half sober, we got pregnant. And I'd always wanted to be a mother. And I thought that because of my disease and because of my past and stuff like that, that it wasn't going to happen. So I find out I'm pregnant. And it was a joy and a terrifying moment at the same time, because he was in treatment at the time. And I'm living in this garage apartment with, no insurance. And I'm just going, God, wait a minute, not now. But God knew what he was doing, And we get married and have this child, and I'm thinking that's going to help him stay sober. Then he'll stay sober. Jan from Al-Anon yesterday, she just told my story as far as I began to get affected by this person's disease. I began to get insane around trying to make this person stay sober. I didn't put on high heels and hot pants, and that whole story she told, that was hilarious. But, okay, I thought it was funny. But, I didn't do all that, but man, I was in a controlling, insane woman. Where are you going? What are you doing? Where's the checkbook? Where's the keys? Why didn't you come home? What's going on? You're lying to me, screaming. Some of the tradition stuff we read earlier, absolutely breaking those, because I would speak about God and the power of God and how God's either everything or he's nothing in meetings. Then I'd come home to him. The green stuff would start to fly. My head would spin. I hate you, and totally gripped with fear, insane, agnostic as the day is long. I mean, I was insane. And I got to the point, another breaking point in my sobriety, that I knew if I didn't do something soon, I'm going to get loaded. Because the way this disease cycle works, we all know so well, God comes in and treats this spiritual malady piece, and it leaves. And that's why the obsession goes away, because I no longer need something to treat that void. Well, if I don't stay active, and if I don't stay current, and if I don't stay doing what I need to do, that void's going to come back. And pretty soon, I'm going to start snapping at people. And pretty soon, I'm going to be feeling sorry for myself. And pretty soon, I'm going to be miserable, irritable, restless, and discontent. And if I stay in that very long, the obsession will return. Because I need God in my life in order to keep that gone. So I got in a really scary spot and realized if I didn't do something, I was going to get high. I was going to get loaded. And thank God for Al-Anon. Al-Anon saved my sobriety. My first Al-Anon sponsor said, Alicia, you just need to separate the disease from the person. And she said, anything that's negative in him is the disease. Anything that's positive is God. And when something negative happens, you just need to say, that's the disease of alcoholism, and let it go. I said, all right, lady, the disease just stole my checkbook. I don't have rent, I'm a little pissed. So I had to learn a lot in that deal, and thank God for it. It saved my sobriety. And 2 years ago, I had to make the decision that it was time to go, that it was time to divorce. A precious little boy, a home that we just bought, had this little happy family delusion dream in my head that I'd been trying to force happen. And finally, all of a sudden, it was like, it's time to go. And this is when absolutely trusting God came into my life and on a level I've never experienced, because I can't make it financially on my own. I can't pay the mortgage on my own. I can't. I mean, all this other stuff that these I can't. And God's going, I'm here. Wait a minute. I got you. So I went through a divorce the last 2 years, and guess what? He wasn't lying, Never once have Ethan and I ever had to struggle for anything. Our needs have been met. The food's been on the table. Roof's been over the head. And he continues to take care of me. And this book talks about over and over some of these conditional promises. This God could and would if he were sought. There's an if in there, because God can and will if I seek him. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. I have to draw near, He has come to all who have honestly sought him. I've got to take some action to seek this power in order to get what he's got for me. And that has been just the reoccurring thing in my sobriety. If I will keep stepping up and doing what I'm supposed to do and following those directions to the best of my ability, he's going to continue to take care of me. And not just remove the obsession to drink and do drugs. That's a given. That one happens. But now the promises begin to come true and the blessings in my life begin to come true. I can't explain how it happens. I don't understand. It all sounds kind of hokey and weird. And sometimes when I explain to my sponsees, about some of this, they're like, okay, wait a minute. So you're saying I'm going to do this work, right? And there's what? And God is, oh God, and it's like, I know it sounds crazy. Trust, I don't know what to tell you. It happened for me. It can happen for any of us. When I got in these rooms, I was a selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, victim, manipulating, controlling, insane tornado woman. And as I began to have this spiritual experience, I began to react to life differently. I all of a sudden become... To be honest, I'm just kidding. I think about other people for the first time in my life. I tell the truth for the first time in my life, which that one doesn't even... I don't know how I tell the truth today. Because in my disease, it was ingrained in me to lie. It was a survival technique. It was a manipulation tactic. I got my way. It's just what I did. The end of my disease, I used to tell people my name was Kelly. I couldn't even tell you my name anymore. I lied about everything. Did you go to McDonald's? Yeah. No, I went to Burger King. Why'd you just... I just lied constantly. My name even means truthful one. It's been a nightmare. And so in order to have this experience happen, they said I was going to have to be honest at any cost. And I was like, you guys you don't understand. I can't. I don't know how. And so as God began to come into my life, that began to show up, that I would be honest, no matter if the consequence would come, no matter what would happen, no matter if you'd think I was stupid, that I would be willing to try to change. I don't play the victim role as much anymore, and all of these are, I'm the poster child for progress, not perfection. I tell you what, I joke sometimes where I work because I get to talk to people about recovery, and I joke that they must wonder sometimes if I'm even really sober because I'm so honest with them about how human I am and that I screw up and that I throw the tantrum that the book talks about and I play the victim roles, But the difference in me today is that I'm aware of this. I can recognize it. I know that it always has something to do with me and God. If I'm throwing tantrums, feeling sorry for myself, playing the victim role, something's not clicking with me and God. What am I doing or not doing with me and God? And I know that today. So I've got directions on what to do to get out of it, make amends where I need to, and go on down the road. And it works every time. The program of Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life. It saved my family's life. There's other people in my family who are alcoholics who are time sober now. It's brought healing. It's given me the power to be the mother that I always wanted to be. It's given me the power to be the friend who can be there no matter what. I've got friendships today that are built on this program, and there is nothing you could do to ever break that bond. It doesn't matter what town they move to or where they go. Because we have this in common, we will never be apart. It's allowed me to be the aunt that can show up for the nieces and nephews. That I used to not even show up for birthday parties, never bring a present. I'd be irritated the whole time I was there and leave. And that was just what I did. They didn't even know me. They didn't even want me around. And today I can show up. I can be daddy's little girl for the first time in my life. Have a relationship with this man, my father, that I never wanted one with. See, he was out there saving souls for Jesus, and I was satanic possessed girl, so we didn't hang out a lot. So throughout my whole disease, I wanted nothing to do with him. I was so full of shame and guilt about the girl I was anyway. He wouldn't, I had this thought that he wouldn't love me. So today there's a relationship that's there. All these things come to pass if I will just do a little bit of footwork. And I never thought it'd be possible that I'd be standing here today. Because only I know who I was in my disease. So only I can really be in awe of the power of God and what he's done to change my life. Life continues to go on. Things continue to happen. But we have a design for living today that really works. I got a call yesterday out here that something had happened at home with a certain situation, and some more of my little plans and designs they're not going the way I thought they were supposed to go, and my son's affected in it, and I have no choice but to trust that God will just continue to show up. You know, it doesn't feel good. It's not what I want to happen. It's not the way things are supposed to go in my book, but I know God's got me. God's got us. You know, I was talking to a friend yesterday about meditation and trying to get some guidance and direction on how to do it better, because I don't know about y'all, but my head's a little noisy. And sometimes even when I get quiet to pray, it's like, dear God, oh man, what am I going to have for dinner? I don't know. Is the phone going to ring? Shit, I was praying, you know, so the discipline on that, it's been difficult. And so I got some guidance on it last night and then tried it what he had suggested this morning. And, I'm sitting there being quiet and I hear this, what are you doing? I don't know how this stuff is supposed to work. So I'm all, what are you doing? Okay, maybe what he's trying to I'm trying to get all into it. And instead I just went, nothing. What are you doing? And I just laughed at myself. And this could just maybe be subliminal. I don't care. But then I heard, I'm watching you. And I'm loving you. And you and Ethan are going to be okay. And I heard that 3 times. And then heard, I've got Ethan. I've got Ethan. I've got Ethan. And that was it. And it was an amazing experience because this little boy, he doesn't always wear dog ears like this, but this little boy is just the light of my life. And I want to do whatever I can to be the best mother I can be, to keep him from the effects of this disease in whatever way that I can. And the more I'm connected to God, the better parent that I am, the more sane I am, the more patient and loving and tolerant I am. And I want to do whatever to make that possible because he is such a gift. And I trust that God's got me. I trust that God's got Ethan. And that's not who I used to be. I'm going to end with this. A couple years ago, I let my dad hear a CD of a woman's talk that I did. It was an AA Al-Anon talk. And I gave him the CD, and he listened to it and gave it back to me. And he was just weeping because of what his little girl was doing today. You know, because he almost saw me die at 17. And then how many nights did I steal from he and my mother just wondering if I was dead or alive, you know, and this blatant selfishness of not even thinking how I was affecting them. And so all this stuff I'd put them through. And here I am today. God's using all that now, you know, and it was pretty cool. And he said, Alicia, God wants you to, his ministry is music. He's a missionary now over in China, and his ministry is music. And he said, Alicia, God wants you to write some songs about what you've been through in your life. I'll put them to music, and we'll get them recorded. I was like, sure. Okay. I've never written anything. We have musical talent in the family, but I don't sing professional. I sing in the shower and in the car, you know. And I have no money. So I was like, whatever, Dad. But I sat down one night to just give it a shot and write a poem. And I was it was very just free. I had a thesaurus and a rhyming dictionary. I wasn't trying to orchestrate it at all. I used words in this poem I've never said in my life, unreservedly. Has anyone ever said that out loud? But it's in my poem. Anyway, but by the time I get done with this poem, I know I didn't write this. You know, I know that God had a part in writing this. And the poem is called Scars. And for me, external scars, I'm covered head to toe. Some of you have them as well, almost battle wounds from our disease, things we've been through. But more importantly, the internal scars. The wounds, the pains, the hurts, the shame, the guilt, the things you've been through that have scarred you internally. And in this poem it says, I asked God why all these things took place. things that changed me forever and caused such disgrace. His answer came clear. The tears began to lift. My child, those scars are your greatest gift. With my power behind you, we will change lives together. Trust me, keep seeking, and I'll leave you never. And that message just resonated in my spirit so seriously that everything I've been through in my life, God is going to use. Everything each one of us has been through, from that first drink to the breath we're drawing right now, there's a purpose and a plan behind it, that God wants to use it to help other people. And if I will step up and show up and allow Him to work through me, then lives can be changed. You know, these things I'd been through used to be my garbage that I carried with me everywhere I went, and I would vomit on everyone about what I'd been through, and let me tell you what I've been through, and now it's like, that's not what it's about. Today it's going to be used to bring life to other people if I will allow God to do so. Page 124 in the Family Afterwards is one of my favorite paragraphs. It says, this painful past may be of infinite value to other families still struggling with their problem. We think each family which has been relieved owes something to those who have not. And when the occasion requires, each member of it should be only too willing to bring former mistakes, no matter how grievous, out of their hiding places. Showing others who suffer how we were given help is the very thing which makes life seem so worthwhile to us now. Cling to the thought that in God's hands, the dark past is the greatest possession you have, the key to life and happiness for others. With it, you can avert death and misery for them. That's exactly what I just want to leave you with, that this past that we have, the things we've been through, it's all going to be used. And we have a design for living for God to show us exactly how He's going to use it. This disease is real. It's killing people everywhere. We need more people to step up and show up and carry this message and use this gift you've been given to bring life to others. I'm going to freak y'all out here. I'm going to end with singing the chorus. I want to thank you guys for having me share this morning. I don't know how to do all this very professionally, so I cough and spit out gum and stick it on my lid. I'm going to get my act down soon one day. Renee, will you hold? I'm just kidding. Okay. So now with God's power, all the scars make sense. My spirit protected, I have found my defense. There is hope for you, 'cause there was hope for me, and He'll walk you through it. Believe that you're set free from the battle deep inside, and it's more than you can bear, and you're crying out for comfort, finding nothing there. There is hope for you, 'cause there was hope for me, and He'll walk you through it. Believe, oh, you can be free.